Hello there and welcome to the F30 3 Series. I think a lot of people who will be looking to buy one of these cars will be coming from an E90 3 Series, or maybe you will be looking at an E90 and an F30 in comparison if you want to buy a 3 Series. So I thought I'd talk about a few of the differences between the two cars to see what cars do better, what things, and what sort of improvements and upgrades the F30 has made over the E90. The first thing you really notice when you step into the car is that you can get really low in it. Now, I know the 3 Series isn't a big car and it's a sporty car to drive. The 3 Series has always been the most sporty out of all its rivals. And you can sit really low in it, which is great, but in the F30 you can sit way lower than you can in the E90. In the E90 3 Series, I was sitting on the floor. I was happy on the lowest setting that the seat was in. In this car, I think the lowest setting is too low. I don't know if it's because the actual seat is lower or if the dashboard and the everything around you is higher. I know you have the iDrive screen now as standard. That was obviously an option in the E90, so the dashboard has grown and gotten bigger. So that's a reason I think you have to sit a bit higher than what you were in the E90, but then again you can sit lower in it as well if you're very tall. So it's good that there is much more adjustment, but I think I am sitting higher in this than I did in the E90 just because of the car around you is a lot taller, I think. Now that obviously makes sense because cars are getting much bigger at the moment, which means that this 3 Series is a lot bigger than the last 3 Series in length, in width, in height, in everything, and also inside, so there's more space inside, but it also means that you feel the car is a lot bigger, especially when you're driving it. I think something else that contributes to needing to sit higher is the wing mirrors. The E90 had really round wing mirrors, which was nice in that not only did they look kind of cool, it was also that you could see behind them, see over them really easy. Whereas these ones, they're big rectangles, and they are massive mirrors, the housing of them, and they create quite a big blind spot that you can't see. Now, when I'm sitting really low in the car, when you're approaching a junction or a roundabout or something and you're looking into the roundabout, you can't see because the wing mirror is so big and it's so tall. So that's yet another reason where you have to sit higher in the car. Another difference is that the dashboard now has the 4 rings, the iconic 4 BMW rings back. The E90 went down to only 2 rings, so you only had the speedometer and the rev counter with the fuel gauges at the bottom, the fuel gauge and then the MPG gauge. Whereas in this car we're back to having a fuel gauge on its own, and then we have oil temp as well, which is a great addition because it's really nice to know how hot the engine is currently. So that's definitely a welcome return. Of course, as well, there is a lot more technology in this car than the E90. I mentioned before that the iDrive system is now standard on all models. You can get upgraded systems, but the standard iDrive comes on all F30 models, whereas you didn't have to have any iDrive if you didn't want to in the E90. Now that means that there's a lot more options you can do with the car. It's a lot more easy to navigate rather than going through menus and submenus and submenus and submenus in the dashboard. And also you have driving modes and you have a bit more kit as standard as well. Now the first thing that you'll notice when you start to drive the F30 3 Series is the steering. We now have electrically assisted power steering as opposed to the old hydraulic system in the E90. Now the E90 had amazing steering and it was praised for having such good feedback and really agile steering. The F30 has lost a lot of that. It's a lot more numb and there's a lot less feeling in the steering. Now they've gone electric for economy's sake, so the engine doesn't have to drive the hydraulic system and it frees up power from the engine, so you get a bit more power. The engine doesn't have to work as hard to maintain the power steering, and also it helps fuel economy as well. Everybody is going down this route, but I'd love to drive a newer 3 Series or a newer BMW with electrically assisted steering, to see if they've made improvements, because this system is one of the early systems and it's not great. There's a lot less feeling than there was in the E90. They tried to mimic it, they tried to mimic how the old hydraulic system feels, but there's a lot. You can definitely tell it's an electrically assisted steering system. That's a mouthful. There's a few funny areas, like just off center, or when you're turning and it's returning to center on its own without your hands on the wheel. You can tell they've tried to tell it how a hydraulic system would react, but it's not great. Another big difference is the gearbox, the automatic gearbox anyway. The F33 series come with the brilliant ZF 8-speed. It's an amazing gearbox. It's super smooth, super fast. Of course, it's very economical now that we have 8 gears, so 120 on the motorway, or 72 if you're analog. You're doing 2000 RPM as opposed to over 3 in the old 6-speed, which is a huge difference, and it really helps the economy of the car a lot. It's also super smooth and super fast. The gear changes take 0.2 seconds, which is a hell of a lot quicker than you can do it yourself in a manual. Of course, as well, it has the manual option, so you can flick it over into sport mode, and then you can also go up and down the gears yourself. But it really shows up the old 6-speed automatic. It's a huge improvement and a definite reason to go for the F30 if you're looking at an automatic car. Of course, the engines in the F30 will be newer engines and improved engines. On the diesel front, again, they're all improved, they're all more economical, they're all more powerful, ever so slightly. Also, the timing chain issues have more or less been resolved. So the timing chains that have plagued BMW for years seem to have been resolved, and most of the F30 cars are exempt from most of these issues. For petrol power, the main difference is turbochargers. So every single F33 series is turbocharged as opposed to the E90. The E90, the 335, was the only petrol car that was turbocharged. Now everything is. Now of course that helps performance and fuel economy, but it does mean that you can't get a naturally aspirated engine. So if you want a 3-litre big naturally aspirated engine, you can't get one. So if you really want that, you have to go for the E90. However, in saying that, the turbochargers really don't take anything away. They're amazing engines. They're much more powerful. Obviously, the 320i in comparison is light years ahead of the E90 320i because of bucket loads more torque with the turbos and more horsepower as well. And with that, they claim higher economy figures as well. So there's no downside. The engines don't feel turbocharged. They're perfectly linear. They rev out. They sound good. I mean, there's no downside to having the turbochargers on the engines. So they are just some of the differences between the E90 and F33 series. I hope I've been in some way helpful in explaining the differences. If you're interested, please comment and let me know any more questions. Please subscribe to the channel to see more, and also like the video if you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.